Thank you, Hari Chaitanya Prabhu, for this very kind introduction. Actually, I didn't recognize myself in the introduction, because you must have introduced someone else, because I joined 32 years ago, and I'm not a GBC for Russia.
Oh, okay.
And not
sorry
known for my kirtans, but
my apologies. That's how.
But the name you got right.
At least something's right. Sorry, that's what I came across. Sorry.
But it's interesting sometimes listening to how devotees introduce you. They're very generous.
Yes.
So what I take it to mean is that they have a projection of what you would, in their eyes, have to become someday. So hopefully, in 40 years, I'll still be around. Hopefully. So I'll measure up to your introduction someday. Thank you so much. And are there anyone here who are at such a program for the first time?
Maybe 3.
Actually, I can also raise my hand.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, me too. So we're together in it. Because it's my first time in Sydney. Well, actually, 20 years ago I transited Sydney once, but I never left the airport, so that doesn't count. So the first time I came to Sydney, and I was so inspired to see the wonderful community of devotees in the Sydney temple this morning. It's actually a historic temple, because that's the place where Srila Prabhupada first came to formally open a center for Krishna consciousness. And what's unique about the gift that Srila Prabhupada brought to the West, or actually, I don't know how you consider Australia a West. By any measure, it's not, well, of course, you can go all the way further to the West and then end up in Australia. But Srila Prabhupada brought this gift of Krishna consciousness to the whole world, and he always emphasized that it's not just a tradition. I don't think anyone here is very eager to follow blindly a tradition. There are so many traditions out there that don't deserve to be followed, actually. So Prabhupada emphasized it's not a tradition, it's a culture, and it's most importantly science. What distinguishes science from a traditional culture is that you receive predictable results from following a scientific process. And Srila Prabhupada emphasized that this culture, which is called Krishna consciousness, is the natural condition of everyone. Wherever he went... Is it okay? How should I speak?
You need to keep the mic closer.
Closer?
Yeah, otherwise you
Bring the mic.
Well, I tend to move a little bit around. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So is it designed special to keep the audience awake? Give everyone a boost. So what Srila Prabhupada said about Krishna consciousness consistently, he said it, and I quote him, it's not an artificial imposition on the mind. Of course, the externals like the dress and the hairstyle, for lack of a better word, and no hair, no style, and the ceremonies and Sanskrit or Hindi, Bengali songs, these are external features of this Krishna consciousness, just like any other feature of our life, like language and the particular names and traditions in different countries. But within that package of cultural feature is the eternal nature of the soul, which is to love and to be loved. Srila Prabhupada emphasized, and he also showed in his own example, his words didn't how would I say that? They weren't divorced from his actions. He himself showed what a person fully accomplished in Krishna consciousness is. His love was oceanic. I'm sure you can relate to this example. I wouldn't have given that example in some inland country, oceanic, but here in Sydney you can appreciate the vast and completely limitless volume and strength and depth of the ocean. When Prabhupada came to the West, he himself was you could say, revolution to the principles and the styles of life that people lived back then in New York. The youth, the generation that he came to be acquainted with, were revolutionaries. They revolted against the normal style of people's lives. And one of the mottos, one of the principles of that generation, the hippie generation, was do not trust people who are over 30. Prabhupada came in his 70 plus, an old man from India with a unrecognizable cultural pattern. He was completely new himself to the Western style of life. The way he spoke, the way he behaved, the way he even looked was completely different from what people were used to seeing around. But then very briefly, after a very brief introduction to him, the people who came in touch with him remembered, all of them, they had the same unique experience, that when they saw Srila Prabhupada, somehow they saw in him a very dear and close, a very compassionate, a very, you could say, humane person who could relate. Is there any way to adjust the microphone so it doesn't give that feedback?
Maybe try the other one.
Hare Krishna.
Try the other one. A lot of feedback.
Yeah, a lot of feedback. Otherwise we'll just switch to singing. I think that would be better use of the microphone.
Let's try this. Turn it back on. Try this.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
No, still the same. Maybe that's bigger. Yeah. This one. I take that. No.
Or should I do without it? I can try to speak up. Maybe it'll be more natural.
Let's try.
What do you think?
Maybe that's bigger. Just turn one off.
I'll try to speak up without the microphone. Is it? I don't have a very loud voice, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me better without the microphone.
We turned one off, so let's see. Maybe.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, this is better. Turn the phone.
Yeah, so Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. I think it doesn't make any difference. Without it. Let me just try to. I'll try to speak up. Yeah, so Srila Prabhupada was. Is it audible? Yeah. Okay, better. So Srila Prabhupada was someone who would always find ways to reach people's hearts by his sensitivity, by his humility, by his being natural, being himself. What people who came in touch with him back then remember, all of them, that his words were coming from his heart, from his soul, and he would always find a way to engage without asking, without demanding, without making any judgments, engage people in devotional service, in spiritual practice. And before they knew, like Mukunda Maharaj, he was a jazz musician. And he came to Srila Prabhupada, and the first encounter he had at his class, after the class he said, the Prabhupada asked him, so what do you do? He said, well, I'm a jazz musician, I play the piano. And Prabhupada smiled and he said, well, I can teach you how to play the piano for Krishna. And Mukunda Maharaj remembers at that time he thought maybe Prabhupada wants to find a way to somehow rather trick me into his organization. And he thought, well, playing piano for Krishna is impossible, maybe flute, but piano, no way. So a few years later, he found himself with George Harrison and the Beatles making arrangements for the Govinda Madhya Purusham prayers, and he was playing the keyboard. And at that time, he all of a sudden just dawned on him, look, wait a minute, what am I doing? I am playing the piano for Krishna, all of a sudden, a few years later. So Srila Prabhupada showed by his own example that Krishna consciousness is a science which goes beyond cultural and social and other limits and boundaries. And the way Krishna consciousness starts, again, as he taught, is by chanting Krishna's names. Krishna, as most of you know, and all of you probably know, is the name of God, which means all attractive. If you try to analyze what attracts people in God, in all religions, in all different persuasions and cultural convictions, is that God has in people's minds has some naturally manifested qualities in him. Like him, he's omniscient, he's all-powerful, he's omnipresent, he is close and also remote at the same time. Remote to respect our privacy and also close. Whenever we want him, he comes and manifests himself. So all these different qualities that are known, God is known by in this world, combined together. And also there is another set of qualities in the spiritual world, in his private life. God has private life, like all of us do. And in that spiritual realm, which is much bigger, much more diverse and variegated than the material world, Krishna has eternal relationship with his devotees. Some of them play the roles of his friends. Yes, God has friends. And he goes out with them and plays with them, just like friends do. Especially we in our youth, we would get away from our parents and we would feel at ease with our friends. And we could get away with the things that our parents would have forbidden us to do. Right? I think you can relate. Well, I can relate to that. And then he has his servants, those who serve him not because they get a salary or because Krishna obliges or forces them into service, but naturally they like to do things that makes Krishna happy as servants. Then he has his parents, of course. Then the parents seems to be a very limited category because usually people have two parents, father and mother. But Krishna has many devotees in the spiritual world who treat him as their child. And that is not limited to human species, because even the cows in Vrindavan, who Krishna herds as a cowherd boy, they treat him as their calf. So whenever they see Krishna, the cows in Vrindavan, they have that natural affection of him. They like to come near him, lick him, and milk naturally flows from their udders when they see Krishna. And of course, he has his beloved. As Prabhupada says, the celebrated damsels of Vrindavan is a very, you could say, formal or literary term, damsels, girls. Damsels, usually the word is used for some noble ladies in a aristocratic setting, but those were very simple cowherd village girls, you could say. Shall we try?
Yeah, they fixed it now, hopefully.
Fix it, okay.
Have a look.
Very interesting.
Because it's going online, so they can't hear it. Otherwise, I think it's just one is on.
I don't know about online, but over the last 3 years I got so, what's the polite way of expressing, well, fed up with online translation,
Yes.
online broadcasts. I cannot live in online, yeah. No, nothing to say about what you're doing right now, but for me it's a luxury and it's a relief to be able to actually interact with real people, not someone behind the screen. Right?
Absolutely.
It's such a luxury. Who was that famous French writer, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry? I think he said it's a luxury of human association, and now you can relate to that. It's so important to actually see live people. So in the spiritual world, yeah, much better. Thank you, much better.
Yeah.
In the spiritual world, Krishna has his beloved, the damsels of Braja, the girls, and he manifests different features according to the relationships he has with different devotees, because they all expect him to be in a particular way. For his friends, he has to be of a comparable age. You cannot really play with a friend who is significantly younger or older than you, or who is stronger than you or weaker than you. It has to be someone who you can relate to. And his parents, of course, they see him in a particular way. How would parents see Krishna? As helpless, as completely dependent on them, so they could develop that protective mood towards him and feel the need of their protection. I don't know about you, but whenever I come back to my home, and my mother will always ask me about, what do mothers ask usually?
Are you hungry?
Are you hungry? Right? Do you eat well? Are you healthy? Is everything okay? And I have to remind myself of how old I am sometimes. Mom, I'm already over 50, so. And I ask her, how old do you think I am? I said, it doesn't really matter, I'm your mother. That's how she, you can relate to that, right? So Krishna has that the eternal parents of Krishna, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. And they feel very protective whenever Krishna goes out in the forest of Vrindavan to herd the cows for the rest of the day. The mother always packs him some snacks, some lunch, and she accompanies him to the outskirts of the village they live in Vrindavan. And then every day she is determined to actually follow Krishna into the forest. No, I cannot leave you alone. It's too dangerous. There are so many wild animals and demons. So I decided I'll go with you. And there's no bigger spoiler to your plays with friends than having your parents around. Yeah, it's incompatible. So Krishna has to find some excuse and tell, no, I will be fine. I have Balaram, I have Sudam, they'll protect me. We'll behave ourselves, I promise. I won't come anywhere close to dangerous places or dangerous animals, I promise. Nothing works, really. So no, I decided I'm going with you. And I'm also a cow-herd girl. In my youth, I used to herd the cows, so I know how to do that. I'll teach you guys how to do that, so I'm going. So finally, Krishna, as the last resort, he has to tell her, Mother, you are too old. You cannot go with us. We'll play, and you're too old for that. That's a very, how is this? Convincing. It's ruthless to tell a lady that you're too old to go with us. It's ruthless, right? So she cannot say anything to that. So she has to stay back. And when Krishna comes back from the forest of Vrindavan, of course, the first thing he's offered is a bath, because he's been walking around in Vrindavan. He's been walking through the forest, and he's all covered in dust. So the first thing that he's given is a bath. So there is a bath arrangement for him. And the gopis want to help, so they get a bathtub, and they have scented water, appropriately warmed with temperature, the right temperature. They add flower petals and scented oils, and they put Krishna into the golden bathtub, and they start bathing him. And Mother Yashoda, she's close by arranging for his lunch. But she's very careful listening to what's going on. And Krishna, who is a master of drama, he likes to create a drama out of everything. He doesn't like things going the ordinary, boring way. So what he does sometimes, even though everything is perfect, the water temperature is perfect, the scented oils are perfect, and the gentle touches of the older gopis who bathe him are very gentle and very caring and loving. Krishna sometimes does that. He goes like, as if he's scalded by water. And Mother Yashoda immediately jumps out of the house and, what's going on? What have you done to my Krishna? let me do it. I cannot really trust you any longer, like that. So he wants to create a drama to bring out her parental love, the motherly love. And of course today, the reason we are here is today is the first day of the Kartik month, which is a very special Kartik, special month in the Vedic calendar. They say that during the month of Kartik, the spiritual activity which people perform becomes accelerated and multiplied by unlimited multiplication, as Prabhupada used to say. Of course, this calculation is given just to inspire people who otherwise don't like to do spiritual practice. So they can, okay, 1 month maybe we could do that if it's so valuable. But for us it's a good reason to come together and remind ourselves of what is there in our lives and take every excuse, every reason, every opportunity to do something extra for Krishna. So I'm very grateful to the devotees, the hosts of our program today, to arrange this program and give us an opportunity to get together. So the month of Kartik is actually a celebration of Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna. And we'll sing a bhajan today, which describes her love and her pastimes with Krishna in the Damodarashtakam prayers. And then we have devotees in the conjugal love, the ladies and gopis of Vrindavan. And they also want to see Krishna in a particular way. Like Mother Yashoda sees him as very helpless and subordinate and dependent on her. She thinks, if I don't feed Krishna, Krishna will die. God will die. And that's how she sees him. And because of that, her love, whenever she sees Krishna, increases. And Krishna reciprocates with her love by presenting himself as a small, innocent, or innocently looking, should we say, because, of course, remember, he also has his place with his friends in the forest. When he's not aware, he's not innocent at all. He is a boy, a teenage boy, away from his parents. Right? So the parents love, the friends love him as a very strong, courageous, talented, gifted friend who speaks many languages, who gives sagacious advices, and he gives a very good example by his behavior. He always protects his friends. Sometimes they even challenge Krishna by getting themselves into a difficult situation, danger, and expecting Krishna to help them. And the gopis, the conjugal lovers of Krishna, want to see him also in a very specific way. Romantic, somebody who inspires romantic feelings in their hearts. Also strong, but in a very specific way. Strong, beautiful, handsome, and an expert player on the flute. Now, Krishna has different instruments for different categories of devotees. The cows he calls with his horn or his conch.
Concha.
Yeah, conch. He blows the conch and the cows know it's meant for them. With the cowherd boys, the friends, he has a different kind of instrument, the bugle. Doesn't play a very sophisticated melody, the bugle. And I don't know what he plays for his parents. Usually parents want to see their children grow as accomplished musicians. I don't know about you, but again, I played the piano in my childhood because my parents wanted me to play the piano. So it was tedious, and I didn't like studying the piano. But because my parents wanted me to play the piano, I had to. Like that. Of course, there was no piano back then in Vrindavan, but the gopis, they wanted Krishna to play the flute, because the flute is a very sophisticated, a very gentle, and very deeply affecting the mind, an instrument which plays very exquisite tunes which can express one's feelings. Even these days in many houses that I visit sometimes, they just have the recordings of a flute. Expert flute player can extract emotions from people's hearts. So I have the violin here, right? Some of you play the violin. Yeah. So it's also another such instrument. So Krishna played the flute, and he played the fifth note on the flute, and all the musical arrangements of Krishna's tunes in Vrindavan were built around that fifth note on his music scale. That's the fifth note. And some musicians explained to me, yes, that he's a musician, by the way, so he got inspired. One musician explained to me that the fifth note actually harmonizes, builds harmony with any other note on the scale. So by playing the fifth note on the flute and building his tunes around that, Krishna gave every gopi out of the many, unlimited number of gopis, an opportunity to hear the tune which was meant exactly for her. Because nothing discourages loving affairs or loving feelings than the understanding that you're just one of the many. You have to be unique, you have to be one. You have to be the one. The only one and only one beloved who Krishna gives complete undivided attention. And that's where his position as God comes in handy. Because unlike us, who cannot really give ourselves to more than how many people? Sociologists actually calculated that an average person cannot maintain more than 400 meaningful connections in one's social life. Somebody you remember, if you add another one, I mean, give or take a couple hundred maybe. But if you add more people, then the previous ones get pushed out. You forget about them. So we have that limited capacity of interaction. Those who we can remember, those who we can maintain a close relationship with, and remember their names. I had a very embarrassing experience once. I came to Delhi. Actually, it was at the Vyasa Puja of Gopal Krishna Maharaj. I just saw his, here he is, Gopal Krishna Maharaj, his picture. It was a Vyasa Puja, it was a celebration of Gopal Krishna Maharaj's birthday. And he has so many disciples, hundreds and thousands of disciples. So I was invited. And I sat in the audience. They rented a big cinema hall that had seats for approximately 1,000, maybe 1,500 people. So I was sitting next to an Indian body devotee. And he was very friendly to me for some reason. So I was interacting with him and appreciating the program. And then I got into a small talk with him. And I asked him where he was from. And he said he was from Chandigarh. Are there anyone from Chandigarh here? You are from Chandigarh, really? Okay. I didn't know that. So he told me he was from Chandigarh. And I started remembering, actually when I was in Moscow, we had a student program. And one very nice devotee, he was a student, a medical student. He became a doctor later on. And he was studying to be a medical practitioner. And I became friends with him. And then he moved. He became a doctor and he moved to Chandigarh. And then he got a spiritual name. And I remembered his name. I said, oh, you're from Chandigarh. I have a very good friend in Chandigarh. His name is Ramaraji Prabhu. Do you know him? And the devotee said, yes, I am Ramaraji. Speaking about social meaningful relationships. I was so embarrassed. Because he changed, and to be fair, it's been a long time after I saw him last, and he got married. His child was sitting next to him, and he started wearing glasses like that. But I was very much embarrassed. Can you imagine? Oh, I had such a wonderful friend, Ramaraji. Do you remember? Do you know him? Yeah, I am that friend. So unlike us, who cannot really maintain meaningful relationships, even if you have a lot of followers on your Facebook, on Instagram, you don't know them. And we have to face it, we need the numbers more than people behind those numbers most of the time. We don't know these friends, so-called friends and followers. But Krishna, unlike us, remembers each and every one of, I don't want to say them, because we also included in the same category. He remembers each and every one of us. And for each and every one of us, unlimited living entities who are even geometrically are very small compared to 1/10,000th of the tip of the hair, which is a very small measure. It's approximately atomic in size. And there are so many of them. How many? I don't know. Unlimited number. But Krishna besides being omniscient and omnipresent and omnipotent, He is also given to each and every one of us. And for each and every one of us, He is unique. And that also gives uniqueness to us. When somebody treats you as a unique person, and not just in a general way, trite and superficial way, say, oh, you're so special. But what's so special? Tell me. He probably won't tell, because it's just a way of expressing one's politeness. You're so special. But Krishna knows exactly, He knows exactly how special we are. And He also manifests Himself just like a diamond, those precious stones, diamonds, when they're properly cut, they become, why they're so attractive? Because you can never look at the same diamond twice. You cannot find two spots or points of observation at which or from which the diamond looks the same. Completely unique. You have 100 people around the diamond will look different to each and every one of them. It displays different facets, different beauty to each and every one of them. And Krishna is the original diamond, because each and every one of us has unique relationship with Him. Which, again, we go back to the original point I started making, that Prabhupada taught us that it's a scientific process, that this relationship with Krishna, of every one of us, is eternal and just needs to be brought up or brought out and awakened, reawakened, Prabhupada used to say. It's just like we wake up from the dream. When we sleep, we create a world in which we find ourselves in very familiar situations, but they're different in that we cannot really enjoy in that dream. When we enjoy in a dream and then we wake up, we start lamenting because it was just a dream, and we cannot go back to the dream and enjoy it as we were in the dream. And then we have a nightmare, and wake up, we feel relieved because it's just a dream. So this happiness and the misery that we experience in dreams, and a sense of happiness upon waking up from a nightmare, and a sense of lamentation that we experience upon waking up from a nice dream, is illusion, because they're based on unreal feelings in the dream. They don't have anything to do with reality. But what's real is our real life. We bring these concepts into our dream, shuffle them, reshuffle, and then create an artificial or illusory situation which stops when we wake up. So, taking this analogy, Srila Prabhupada explains that all of us have that original real life in the spiritual world. All of us. That's why the relationships here, relationships of friendship, relationships of subordination, in a good sense, relationships of parenthood, parental relationships, relationships of love, they're so tangible, they're so real. They feel real because they are a reflection of the original feelings, original relationships with Krishna. So Prabhupada says that by practicing this Krishna consciousness, starting with chanting, all of us will come back to the original condition of love with Krishna in a unique role that Krishna plays in our lives and we play in His. And He has a way of reminding and showing His appreciation to each and every one of us. Just like the cows. I don't know if anyone would like to become a cow in Krishna's herd in the spiritual world, but there are 900,000 cows, and then come back from the pasturing grounds. Sometimes one cow, out of a sense of, not exactly jealousy, but a sense of, she wants to see if Krishna sees or remembers her, if she is special. And she hides in the bush. She hides in the bush and she sits there and waits for Krishna to remember her or to recognize her absence. Because there are 899,999 other cows. So Krishna right away sees the missing cow and calls her by her special name. And then she jumps out of the bush, happily being recognized and remembered by Krishna, conspicuous by her absence. And Prabhupada explains that each and every one of us missing in the spiritual world is remembered and missed by Krishna. And Krishna cannot be completely happy without us going back to the spiritual world, even though he has so many devotees in the spiritual world who he can be completely happy with. That's his perfection, his position as God, not the God who doesn't really care for us, removed and aloof, laissez-faire God, kind of laid back and not needing us, not the vengeful and stern, angry God who punishes us for the crimes of other people, but the God who is completely involved with us, but at the same time respectful of our choices. What really attracted me when I started studying the Bhagavad Gita, I was a chemistry student, and somebody gave me the Bhagavad Gita. It took me a while to get used to the language, to the terms, to the philosophy. It was a hard read for me, I must confess. It was difficult to read it, my first reading. But gradually, as I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, things started falling in place like jigsaw pieces. But then the punchline of my Bhagavad Gita reading was when Krishna, towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita, having already shown Arjuna his universal form, having shown himself as time, he says, "Time I am, the destroyer of the worlds." Having already shown Arjuna that he is the super soul in the hearts of everyone, that he is a master and controller of the material universe, having explained to him everything, all the philosophies that are there in the world, in a succinct form explained in the Bhagavad Gita, having done that, Krishna, towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita, very surprisingly, all of a sudden tells Arjuna, "Arjuna, now I have explained everything to you, and now accept me or burn in hell," right? Did he say that? No. No. What did he say? He said, "Now Arjuna, yeah, now I have explained everything. Now it's up to you. Do whatever you want." Like that. It's respectful. It's respectful. It's respectful, it's considerate, and it's also loving and affectionate on Krishna's part. So he gives a choice over and over again to all of us. Why? Because he doesn't want to force himself upon us. He doesn't think he deserves our attention. Krishna. Having done everything for us and arranged everything, including our bodies, our environment, the laws of physics and chemistry, the sun and moon, everything that maintains our life and maintains our social relations, everything. Having given us our being, our existence itself, Krishna doesn't think he deserves our attention in return. So, well, if they don't like me, what can I do? I'll wait. And because you're eternal, you also wait. And because you want to... Thank you so much. Is the sign that we have to, is it the sign that we have to finish? Very polite and cultural way. Okay, time is up. Have your flowers. And let's move to something else.
Never finish. If you finish, I'll go home.
Oh, okay. You're lucky. I don't have a home to go to here in Australia. I have to stay back. So Krishna says, well, I have given everything to him, but so what? Like a parent. Like a parent, what does a parent do? Parents, loving parents, they rear a child, give birth to the child first of all, of course, and then bring the child up, and sometimes mothers spend sleepless nights taking care of the child. There's a joke that parents can relate to, that the joke goes like, those who say sleeping like a baby never had one. Because babies don't sleep, right? At least they don't sleep when they're supposed to. So those who say sleeping like a baby, they didn't have one. Sleeping like a baby means waking up every 30 minutes and crying. That's how babies sleep, right? Do babies remember? Children remember? No, they don't remember. What the parents do. Like that. So Krishna is a very loving and affectionate parent he gives everything to the child, but then the child goes his own way. And sometimes he or she abandons the parents and forgets for some time the parental love that they received from the parents. And the parents just wait. They continue loving, they continue caring, but sometimes the child becomes grown up. I'm a grown up man now, so mind your own affairs, my dear parents. Let me live my life. But then as they grow and mature, they understand that the parents all along cared for them and loved them, and whatever they have in their lives is because of them. So the same way Krishna is a very loving and affectionate parent. He never forces himself upon his devotees. He gives them complete freedom, while maintaining and arranging and supplying everything they need to fulfill their desires and their choices in life. But he waits. Why? Because he knows that he can take care of them much better than anyone else. So whenever we decide, and that could take as long as we wish, whenever we decide, we can go back to the spiritual world. And this encounter with the devotees is the beginning of this path back to the spiritual world. Something attracts us in them. Again, citing my own experience, and I'm sorry I apologize for referring to myself so much. What can I do? I don't have anyone else's experience in my life, it's mine. So I think it's a universally applicable general experience that the devotees who appeared in our lives, somehow they created an alternative just by the way they behave, the way they speak, the way they treat us, the way they look. Sometimes also an alternative look, very much alternative. When I met devotees in 1991, so I was a student of chemistry, and the way they treated me was completely unique to me. They treated me as an old friend, even though we just met a couple of days ago. They dealt with me as if they wanted to give me something precious and never wanted anything from me. Selfless. And I was, of course, an experienced young man of 18 years, so I didn't think I didn't know anything in life, of course. By that time, I was an accomplished explorer of life. But I was surprised. Even my best friends, who I considered my best friends, never treated me like that. Something in them and the devotees made them so selfless and so content, so happy, that happiness that they had was up for grabs. You could just have it. And they didn't mind sharing it with you. Not only that, but somehow I discovered that the more they shared with me, the more they had it. So it's something unique, out of the world. So that's the first encounter. The devotees, Krishna respects our freedom and our self-determination because, well, he is the Father after all, so he has to treat us in this way. But devotees are not bound by Krishna's politeness and respect. They can barge into our lives. They can just force themselves and tell them, look, you are here trying to be happy, but Krishna suffers in separation from you. Go back. So that's the role devotees play. And Krishna, he can always blame it on them. That was not me. I didn't want to interrupt your sojourn in material world. It was them. The devotees came on their own, out of their own accord, and changed the course of your life. So I have nothing to do with that. But I'm happy you're back. So that's how devotees of Krishna and Krishna cooperate. Krishna entrusts or delegates to them the responsibility of reconnecting us with Krishna. And the devotees, they do not do it for themselves. They don't need anything from us. And by their selflessness and their compassion and love and affection that they manifest in abundance, they send us back to the spiritual world by introducing us to chanting, prasadam, the books, the kirtan, programs such as this, and by introducing us to their association. So this is what this home program is about, and I'm always happy to see devotees getting together, not just among themselves, but also giving an opportunity for others, those who are on a spiritual quest, to come and see, check it out, what it feels like. And sometimes home programs are arranged in a very spontaneous way. Sometimes we just get together without any strict plan or any particular agenda. Just like for me, it's a complete surprise of what was going on. Like the Tulasi Puja we had in the beginning, I wasn't ready for that. But whatever. In the spiritual world, everything is spontaneous. Krishna doesn't have that strict, etched in stone, as they say, plan for eternity. He's spontaneous. He doesn't know. If you ask Krishna if he knows what's going to happen today, he doesn't. So much for his being God. He doesn't know. He doesn't want to know. Because he wants to have it as a surprise for him. And devotees have that knack of surprising Krishna. Every time, again, speaking of Mother Yashoda, when they go to the forest and they play enough and they get hungry, after a few hours of play, they get hungry. So they sit down, and they open their lunch boxes. And every time Krishna is surprised to discover what Mother Yashoda put in the lunch box. He doesn't know. Or sometimes his friends, I don't know if you do that in Australia, maybe it's dangerous because there are so many poisonous plants, but in Vrindavan there are no poisonous plants and flowers. So sometimes his friends tell Krishna, Krishna, you please close your eyes and I'll put a very nice sweet bowl into your mouth. And Krishna closes his eyes, that gullible Krishna. He closes his eyes and opens his mouth wide. Did you play this? Yes. Do you play this game? No. Yeah, I don't think kids play games any longer with each other. They just use I'm not speaking about you, but usually the kids are all in the virtual worlds of their smartphones and computers.
I try my best to balance it.
Balance between the real life and the virtual life.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the real life you didn't get to the flower game, right? I guess. So that's, again, I'm not giving you any ideas.
No.
Flowers which are not safe to put in the mouth. I have to make the disclaimer, right? Public program. And it's being recorded, so legally I'm protected. Don't try it at home. Anyhow, so he is told by his friend, okay, open your mouth, and I'll put this wonderful, behind his back, wonderful sweet bowl. And Krishna, trusting his friend, opens his mouth wide and closes his eyes, and he puts a flower into his mouth. And Krishna bites on the flower and makes a face with a very bitter, and everyone laughs at Krishna. Like that. So Krishna is spontaneous. He tells his omniscience to just recede to the background. Don't mess with my relationships with devotees. So Krishna forgets in the spiritual world that he is God. Or maybe when it's more fun to be God, then he remembers that he's God. When it's more fun to be God. But when it's not needed, he's just a friend, or just a child, or just a lover, or just a master. Like that. So if you put all these roles that Krishna plays in the spiritual world together, and the names that Krishna is called by his devotees in the spiritual world, each and every devotee has a special, unique name. Like many of you, I'm sure you have some nicknames, aliases, or some names that your parents or your friends call you, right? And maybe some of them have a unique name for you, and no one else knows except you and him or her. Sometimes you go on the smartphone with a special one by that name. Nobody can recognize you by the name on that phone. I have a friend in Australia, and he calls his name something. I would never recognize her by that name. I won't tell you what that name is. So Krishna has these different features, different appearances, different roles, different characters, different ages, and different names. All of them are different, but they are one in one sense. All of them attract his devotees the most. And if you combine all these names together, into one. How would that sound? Krishna. Krishna means all attractive. So if you want to express the idea of Krishna being the friend, he's being the child, he's being the beloved, he's being the master, he's being the object of worship, all of that together is expressed in these 5 letters or 6 letters, depending on how you write it. Krishna means all attractive. So by chanting Krishna's names, that name, why it's so distinguished from all other names, is by chanting this name, we reawaken our relationship with Krishna. It's just like a person suffering from amnesia. Sometimes because of a trauma or a physiological condition, people forget their previous life. And the way it's cured or treated is that, of course, by medicinal treatment, medical treatment, but also they usually invite their dear and near ones who, by telling stories from their forgotten life, they reawaken memories, and gradually a person remembers his identity, his relationships. I have a friend who somehow or other got into a very traumatic experience, physically traumatic, and he came back after that experience brutally assaulted, and somehow he remembered, just because of his motoric memory, he remembered the way to his home. And he came into his home and he didn't remember his mother. He didn't remember the home. And he was just about to go back, thinking maybe I've mistaken someone else's home for mine. But his crying mother blocked his way, and she wouldn't let him out. And then, of course, he stayed back, and then the doctors treated him for his traumas, but the most important part of the treatment was his friends and his parents telling him about his childhood, about his youth, and gradually his memories reappeared in his mind, like that. So when we chant Krishna's names and read about him and hear about him, that's what happens. We are as if we're patients being treated for amnesia. We gradually remember and reawaken our eternal relationship with Krishna. Initially, it feels as if it manifests as happiness, which has no reason. When we are with devotees, at least again, sorry for quoting my own example, when I started associating with them, somehow it sounded very familiar. I never saw this person, had never seen these people in my life, but somehow they felt very familiar. And the way they treated me and the way we spoke about Krishna and even the chanting somehow felt as if it was long forgotten, but something very dear and important to me. And I had that feeling of nostalgia, the yearning for something that I had experienced but forgotten. So many people can share that. It takes even sometimes an instantaneous encounter with devotees at a Harinam or a Kirtan, like some of you more probably had that experience by being in a Kirtan with devotees. Something happens and the heart starts developing these, reawakening the memories of relationship with Krishna, and gradually it becomes more and more nuanced and more detailed. Just like when Krishna comes back to Vrindavan from the pasturing grounds, he plays his flute, but when he's at a distance, you cannot even see him first. All you can see is a cloud of dust that is raised by the hooves of the cows, because there are so many cows and they walk down that village path, not the paved roads we have here, but it's a natural path full of dust, and the dust is raised and there's a cloud of dust. And somewhere inside the dust there's a glittering, shining center of illumination, a bluish illumination emanating from within. Like that. Krishna. You can also see the location of Krishna by the natural, you could say, GPS system that the cows have. They have their ears, and the ears of the cows, unlike our ears, they can turn around independently. And they all are facing the direction of Krishna. You can see by the direction of the cow's ears where Krishna is. And also from within that cloud of dust is the sound of the flute. But again, from a distance, you cannot hear it so distinctly. All you can hear is that there is something. It's muffled, it's silenced to a significant extent, but you can hear it. It's very attractive. Sometimes a kirtan goes on, and you approach a house where a kirtan or the temple goes on, and you can hear boom, 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 the mridanga, the first thing you hear. Then you come close, you hear the karatals. Then you come close, you hear the vocals. And then you come close, you hear the lyrics. Then you come inside the temple and you can hear everything and see the people. So as Krishna approaches and the cloud grows nearer and nearer, you can hear the tune of Krishna's flute. And then when he comes very close, you can hear the different nuances and alliterations and musical arrangements. And then you come and see him face to face. So this is how our spiritual life is. It starts off, 5 minutes, starts off with a very general but very pleasant and attractive feeling of being happy, being finally at home. And then as we continue associating with Krishna through these processes of devotional service by chanting, hearing, reading and trying to serve him, then this original memory becomes more and more manifest and distinct in our minds and our hearts. And it goes even deeper than that. There's one devotee who had an open heart surgery, and he had to be given anesthesia for 6 hours. The surgery was very complicated, 6 or 5 hours. So before he was given anesthesia, he imagined, visualized in his mind his favorite deity of Krishna in the temple, and very, very carefully and distinctly visualized their images. And when he was brought out of the anesthesia a few hours later, he saw them again. So they stayed with him throughout these 5 hours of induced coma, like that. So it's much deeper than the mind, much deeper than the intelligence, much deeper than any experience we have. And that the most important part of that for us is that when we have that connection with Krishna, just like those devotees who saved me, you could say, introduced me to this path, we can also become completely accomplished and fulfilled within, so we don't need anything from other people to be happy. And all we want to do is to give them something. We can be completely selfless in our love, in our relationship with parents and friends and those who are subordinate to us. In general, we become someone who everyone can relate to as a friend without even knowing us personally. And we can also start serving in the same capacity by introducing others to the spiritual science, by playing the same role in other people's lives as those who introduced us played in ours. And this way we can repay the debt to them, just by sharing and extending and continuing to project the same atmosphere of the spiritual world. So I'll stop here. I was requested to speak on the 5 relationships with Krishna. I tried to do that, but in a way that would be relatable to those of you who have come at this program for the first time, myself included. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.